Hi everyone, I'm Jack the Rambling Raconteur, and I hope that you're doing well. World Cup 2022 has kicked off, and I want to jump in with the Literary World Cup book tag. I absolutely love the World Cup tournament. It is one of my all-time favorite sporting events. I've been watching it for over 20 years now, and it's a tournament that I just absolutely love. I draw real joy from it. And Elizabeth over at Bouqins Books liberated this tag idea from an article that The Guardian published, I want to say it was 8 years ago in 2014. I remember reading the article at the time. And that was also the first tournament I got to watch with my wife. It was a year after we'd been married. And so we just had so much fun that summer watching the World Cup. But the idea is you name a starting 11 for the country that you're from. So I'll be naming them from the USA, even though honestly, I root for the Netherlands. My grandfather came over from the Netherlands in the 1950s, and he was the one who really helped inspire my love for international soccer. But for the USA, a starting 11 riders who would make up this team. So we're going to start in the back, as tradition dictates, and identify that our goalkeeper is going to be Louise Erdrich. I think as a writer, she has this real vision for people, for humans, and there's real psychology to being a goalkeeper, particularly if penalties come into play, which is going to happen in the knockout rounds likely. So having a writer who really understands people, understands psychology, gets in their heads, gets in what they feel, that's who I want in goal. Now, our defense needs to be solid. So for a center defender, I want a really burly writer, someone who's strong. I'm going with Herman Melville. I think he just has a real tenacity, but also a real patience. And the way that he just goes in and learns everything there is to know about whaling suggests that this is a guy who's going to study every team, every forward. He's going to know their moves, know their style of play, and he's going to be able to shut it down. He's also got some aggression that I think will come through. But I need to pair him with somebody who understands his style of play. So I'm going with Ralph Ellison as my other central defender. I feel like those two would just be this perfect pair. As soon as Melville starts to move up, Ellison understands and he's covering the space behind Melville. As soon as Melville's having a rough day or he's a little sore, he's tight, Ellison can push forward. Ellison just understands Melville as a writer in a way that few others have, and so he's the perfect partner. Additionally, Ralph Ellison was trained musically, so he has this sense of music, the joy of the game. And talk about a central defender who would be able to play the ball out of the back. I think that's Ralph Ellison. The other beauty of having Ralph Ellison in the team is that we would get his bizarro hot takes. So just as a writer, he would always talk about how he really drew his influences from people like Melville and Dostoevsky, not Richard Wright, and he was always on about that. Could you imagine what he would be talking about? Oh yeah, I really draw all of my moves from Eusebio, not, Paolo Aldini. It would be this wonderful comedy that Ellison would provide. Now, for my backs, my left and right back, I need like stone cold killers. I need writers who don't hesitate for a tackle, take the ball away, press aggressively. So my left back is going to be Stephen Crane. And part of the reason for that is that Stephen Crane is just, when you read his stories, like he knows right when to move. There's an aggression to his stories. There's a just absolutely brutal vision of humanity. That's the guy I want on defense. But he's also this sense of adventure. I could see Stephen Crane pushing up. He'd be a back who'd push up the field and have a lot of fun with that. Now, my right back is going to be an absolute monster. It's Cormac McCarthy. Just imagine Judge Holden playing soccer. Yikes. But the other beauty of having McCarthy there is that he knows just enough Spanish. I don't know that he's actually bilingual, but he knows just enough Spanish that he'd be able to communicate with players from other teams. And who knows what he would get up to saying. Now, in midfield, we've got to start to have some more expansive play, because right now it's maybe Ellison and Crane who are giving the expansive play. But in midfield, I'm going to put James Elroy. He's a master of the dark arts. He's going to be the holding midfielder, sort of box to box. He can get in there and do the dirty work, but those telegraph lines of prose he writes suggest that this is a guy who knows how to commit and make laser passes, totally pinpoint accuracy. That's who I want in midfield. My central midfielder, the conductor of the team, the metronome, the one who makes everything come together, Toni Morrison. Now, in part because she understands the back, she understands Melville, she understands Ellison, she's the spine that unites this team together, and she can do anything. She could write in so many different tones and themes and genres. She was such a master of her craft. And all those years as an editor, again, suggests that like Melville, she's going to know the play. She's going to understand it. This is our captain. Okay, so Toni Morrison's going to be in midfield. She's going to play where she chooses to. She's going to play in whatever tradition or style she wants, and it's going to be wonderful. Our attacking midfielder, we need someone with imagination, prodigious imagination, who can unlock the defense. So we're going with Octavia Butler. The way she could just take ideas and turn them on their head. The new avenues she opened up in science fiction. This is someone who I think is going to be able to open up new passing lanes, new avenues of space to be able to unlock that defense and get the ball in for the goal. Now, our attackers, over on the left wing, I want an inverted winger. I want somebody who understands space, somebody who's going to cut in. Danger. I want Mae Swenson. She was a poet. If you haven't read much of her poetry, it's wonderful. But if you read her poetry, you see the way she plays with the physical space of the poem, the shape of the lines, the way that the words appear on the page. This is someone who understands space. Talk about an inverted winger, somebody who could just see the space that exists there, see it before other players are creating it, and be in the right space at the right time. That's who I want as my left winger. My right wing is going to be Shirley Jackson. I want somebody who understands both novels and short stories. Novels to be able to just create all of the play, keep it going, make the pass forward, cross the ball in. But short stories because I need somebody who can get on the end of that ball and send it straight to the net when it's time to put the ball in the net. My center forward, my number 9, not too much of a poacher. I'm going to go with somebody who finishes the spine from Melville and Ellison through Morrison. It's William Faulkner. He's a little creaky, maybe a little old, probably needs a little more water and Gatorade in his system, but again, that novels and short stories, the bewildering sense of prose that he can create, I think he can find the time to put that ball in the net. He's going to get on the end of it. He's going to find the angle, and that's who I need. I'm thinking someone like the guy who will conjure the goals of Marco van Basten. Now, I know those are my starting 11, but I absolutely love soccer. I absolutely love reading books. So let's talk about some super subs. I mentioned some chaps who probably are getting cards and in a tournament might be having to sit on the bench for a game after they've had too many cards. I'm thinking maybe Stephen Crane, almost certainly Cormac McCarthy, James Elroy's probably eventually going to get caught tugging jerseys. So we need some super subs. So I'm going to go with Ray Bradbury. I'm going to go with Richard Matheson, two folks who move between genres. We could put them at the back. We could put them forward. They could do a lot of different things. For an absolute poacher, I want Robert E. Howard, somebody who really can't do a lot, but what he can do, he does amazingly well. He has all the right energy, and we're bringing him in the final 12, 15 minutes when we need that goal or for penalties. I want some youth on the team. I want some youth subs. I'm going to go with Peter Shelley Clark and Marisha Pessel, two of my favorite young writers who are still working. And if I need a backup goalkeeper, I'm going to bring Peter Matheson along. He's talking about somebody who continually reinvented what he was capable of, a writer who was constantly going back, revising his works, exploring new themes. There's someone who I think really could bring something to the team, act as some glue. He'd probably lead the team like meditation sessions, help just, keep folks focused and relaxed in the right ways. And my coach, I felt like I needed a playwright to be the coach because we need someone who understands lots of characters moving together on a stage, moving through a system. So I'm bringing Lynn Nottage, Pulitzer Prize winning playwright 2 times. She's going to be our coach, but I mentioned some writers who are no longer with us. So I need a coach for the ghosts. My assistant coach is going to be Eugene O'Neill, in part because with Gene O'Neill, we would also get some amazing memoir at the end of this tournament called Long Ball's Journey into Goal. Finally, my trainer will be Walt Whitman. He worked as a volunteer nurse during the Civil War. I imagine he could be a great trainer out there. The national broadcast, I want Joan Didion and Mark Twain. That would be absolute dynamite. My international broadcast will have Richard Wright and James Baldwin. There'll be some great comedy there, particularly every time Ellison gets a little too, clever for his own good. My George Best AllStars who didn't quite make the team might be folks like James Crumley, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Edgar Allan Poe. There's also sort of an Eric Cantona All-Star, and that's going to be Ernest Hemingway. Yes, his short stories suggest that he should be in that Robert E. Howard role as a poacher. But here's the thing. Hemingway's got to come off the bench. There's no way he's willing to do that. He doesn't want to be a super sub. He doesn't want to be the poacher who gets the goals. He's just going to start fights with everybody in the training room. And we just can't have that. So Hemingway's got to watch at home or from the stands or doing some weird beach soccer. We also missed out on Don Delillo and Bernard Malamud. They went to a baseball diamond. They didn't understand the concept of the World Cup, and so they're out there tossing the ball back and forth on a baseball diamond, confused as to why nobody else showed up to play. And finally, we have a couple of folks who weren't invited. Henry James, who writes enormous, long-winded essays about the beauty of the game and the way a player's shoelaces lie during the anthem. Dreadfully boring. We also are missing John Updike, who's a little resentful of it and writes a bunch of opinion pieces about Toni Morrison's captaincy. And, you know, is Melville too aggressive for the back line and all sorts of nonsense, but certainly less boring than James. And finally, we're missing Philip Roth, who's probably subtweeting everybody and complaining. Nonetheless, I bet that's a great starting 11. And I had a lot of fun with this tag. So here's my promise. I'm going to try and do another one of these at the end of December for whichever nation wins the World Cup. I thought about who has a good shot to win it, and outside of my beloved Netherlands and one other top team, I think I could name 11 solid writers from the other countries. So let's see. And of course, feel free to let me know who your starting 11 would be. Thank you.